This podcast is brought to you by Data Media, email deliverability and email marketing consulting services.
If you have a poor domain reputation, you won't see a list unsubscribe header. They're not building these tools to enable you to sort of wash your list. For good senders, they want to make it really easy for their customers to manage their profile. And like in Yahoo, they have a subscription center. So you can actually go into your Yahoo Mail and look at the subscription center and see every message you're subscribed to that has a list unsubscribe, and click an unsubscribe button, even if you haven't got the email in your inbox.
Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of emailgeeks.show, the podcast where once a month the leading email experts share their knowledge about email marketing, email deliverability, and marketing. My name is Sela Yofe and I'm an email deliverability consultant. I'm working with global email senders, startups, and email service providers on improving their email deliverability, email authentication, and email strategy. I'm the host of this podcast. Hello to Matthew Vernhout. You're a founder, an author, a podcast host, a public speaker, a digital marketing and privacy advocate. This is what your LinkedIn headline said. But can you tell us more about your background and how did you get into email?
Yeah, so like many people, I tripped and fell into email by mistake.
Everyone tells that.
Yeah, it's not that career path I came out of college.
No one intentionally got into email.
Thinking of that. So I went to school for network engineering and software development, and my first job out of college didn't last very long. There was some communication issues, etc., that happened, and then I got this job working with my sister's roommate, and he worked for this little email company here in Toronto. And I started then the network operations because that's what I went to school for, was, networking and such. So throughout working at that, eventually I became in charge of systems and making sure that the systems were operating. And when mail queues get full, guess what? It becomes a systems issue. And then it became my issue to solve. So I got really good at solving deliverability issues with rate limiting and blocking, etc. And that sort of evolved into, at the time, what was called ISP relations, which, over the last 20 years has evolved into deliverability. And, I've done it currently, I think, like 5 different ESPs, plus 2 different consulting companies, plus some of my stuff on my own time. So over that time, that's kind of how I got into deliverability, was, really by mistake and through opportunity, I would say.
Deliverability is kind of confusing. What do you think that email senders should know about deliverability? Sometimes it's even confusing. Delivery, I got it. Great delivery.
Delivery is definitely confusing for a lot of people. Even there's still days 20-something years later that I get confused about deliverability. So I think why people should at least know a little bit about deliverability, right? As an email marketer, what's your number one goal? To get a message to your consumer in their inbox so that they can open, click, engage, complete whatever your call to action is. And if you don't have at least a baseline of some deliverability understanding and the process that, gets a message from point A to point B and all the sort of steps in between, you have to have at least a basic understanding of that so that you can watch, first off, is my campaign performing right? Secondly, am I getting the results I should be? And if you have a problem, what are some simple things you could start with in order to resolve those problems? Now, the other piece as a deliverability professional that people need to understand is make friends with your data team, because your data is typically the thing that's going to cause the problems with your delivery. So, in in a roundabout way, I've actually even become a bit of a data scientist in regards to fixing delivery issues. So all those pieces are tied together, and that's that piece that you need to understand when it comes to delivery. First the technical, then the data side.
By data issues, it's quite generic. Can you get more deep into this topic?
Data quality for sure. So, where are the addresses you're getting coming from? Right, that's a big one. Are they properly permissioned? Do people understand they're going to be receiving email? Are you tracking that permission properly? So, thinking about from the Canadian anti-spam legislation, right? We have, in theory, 2 levels of consent. An implied consent, meaning you have a business relationship with the company, you've purchased, you've subscribed, you've done something to engage in a relationship with that company. The second one is an express consent, which is a higher level of consent, but they have different data regulations associated with them. An implied consent only lasts for 24 months from the last interaction or last qualifying action of an existing business relationship. So 24 months from your last purchase, for example.
Got it.
So first off, being able to track the difference between whether it's an implied consent or an express consent. Understanding, did it come through a contest? Did it come through a specific web form? Did it come through a specific partner, potentially, that you've been working with? When you look at data from those points of view and you're able to track back and say, why is this data set performing significantly better or significantly worse? Because I've seen both. Then you can make intelligent decisions on, is that data something you want to continue using, maybe invest more in if it's really good, or invest less in if it's not performing the way you want it to. So understanding your data and understanding how the stream of inbound to outbound to the customer works also helps fix delivery issues.
How do you convince email senders to invest in deliverability consulting? Because it's something very vague sometimes.
Yeah, so there's sort of 2 opportunities, major opportunities. The first one is, they do something wrong and get blacklisted, right? That's a really easy sell, right? I can't deliver mail. I need help, right? That's your easy option. The harder option is the idea of, an ounce of prevention that you spend the time working to prevent an issue is significantly cheaper than trying to resolve the issue, right? So, and I say that because when you're trying to resolve the issue, you're probably not making money because you're not delivering mail. And you're paying a consultant at the same time to help you fix it. So you have a double sort of decline in revenue. You're paying somebody and you're not making money. If you prevent, a little bit of consulting and figure out where your problem areas are and address those, you prevent those periods where you're not able to send mail or you're not able to make money through email.
There are many email platforms out there. Everyone has a different approach to email deliverability, managing their servers, preventing abuse, assigning IP space to sender, etc. From deliverability standpoint, and I just wrote an article for the OI blog about the topic, can you highlight the roles of the platforms and the roles, of the senders, the email senders, the platform users?
Sure. So high level, from the platform point of view, they're in charge of what I would call the technology part of it, right? Database management, MTA management, IP management, authentication. So it's the platform's job to do sort of all the heavy lifting from the technology point of view of targeting, segmentation, obviously with input from the client, but all of the technology part of actually sending the message. The client's responsibility is the data. Where's the data coming from? Data management. So how are they enforcing, whether it's expiry or suppression or things like that. The content being sent in regards to, is it content that's going to resonate with their subscribers? And so that's really sort of the split, right? Is the technology piece, let the technology vendor deal with that. The actual marketing efforts and the data behind the marketing efforts, that's the brand. And the majority of the responsibility for delivery sits on the brand side. Very rarely do you end up with delivery issues as a result of something your technology provider is doing. Other than, maybe other clients are influencing that. That's also a possibility. But again, that's a technology provider issue. They need to police their clients to make sure that they're not seeing bleed over in reputation or, excessive blocking as a result of other client action. So that would be where I would say that another responsibility is keeping your network clean. That's a network owner responsibility from the technology side. But, the data is really the client responsibility and the targeting and the actual marketing.
In a minute, we will talk about senders guidelines. Are there any ESP guidelines? Because I see different ESPs with totally different approach on how to manage their MTAs, their clients' vetting processes, and so on.
Yeah, there actually is an ESP sort of handbook, if you will, or best practice document. So the Mobile Messaging Malware Anti-Abuse Working Group, or MOG, as people refer to it, has a living document that's been iterated probably 5 or 6 times, written by the community, mostly by ESPs working together to come up with best practices around vetting clients, network management, authentication solutions, and how you manage them. And these are updated every 18 to 24 months. They get looked at. They're available on the MOG website as well. So if you're an ESP out there, or if you're a sender and you want to see what ESPs think sort of a baseline should be, you can go and find the MOG Sender Best Practices documents.
You see, we are always learning. I wasn't aware of that document, and I believe that the local ESPs here are unaware of that document. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
And I think, it's certainly something, it's like I said, it's been a living document at least 15 years. So it's been around, it's been iterated. And it really does target ESPs. They call it sender best practices, so maybe people think it's for marketers, but it's actually for networks. It's for ESPs.
Gmail and Yahoo said in a joint announcement that they have a new senders guidelines. Even before that change that got the funny name Yahoogle, Gmail said that they can filter emails and spam with an impressive 99.9 accuracy. So my question is, why change and why now?
Yeah, so let's take 2 seconds. So back in October of 2023, Yahoo and Google jointly announced that they were going to enforce authentication on senders. So SPF, DKIM, DMARC. In regards to any email being sent to their network for a bulk sender. So, the number thrown around was over 5,000 messages. And those changes were scheduled to come into force starting in February. And then there was another benchmark in April. And then there's another benchmark in May. So over time, they're basically going to say, we're starting this and we're tightening down the screws as we go. So it's not an overnight change. Give people time to adjust and adapt. On top of that, they also said one-click list unsubscribe needs to be present. And there was a few other sort of technical things, TLS and such that needed to be implemented. But again, that's a technology thing, I think, that lives with your ESP. It's not something a brand necessarily needs to work about. Is it TLS? I don't know, right? Your ESP should take care of that. So those changes have come into play. And like you said, Google has announced, 99.99% accuracy. So the one thing there, like when you're talking billions of messages, and I don't remember exactly, the number, but it's somewhere north of 10 billion messages, right? So if you're looking at 99.99% accuracy on 10 billion, you're still letting a lot of mail through. Now, if you can make that 99.999%, you make a huge difference in regards to the quality of traffic that you're allowing into the network. So, moving the needle from 85% to 87% is a lot easier than moving the needle from 99.99% to 99.999%. So every little incremental step you can take such as authentication, it is something is going to be a huge difference for them. The other side is domain reputation is such a big piece of the Yahoo and Google infrastructure, right? Yahoo bases their feedback loops on it. Google faces their Google Postmaster, all that data from Google Postmaster is based on DKIM keys. And it was really a way to enforce inbound mail to their needs in regards to how do we build reputation, how do we maintain reputation, and how do we sort of implement that piece. And I think by slowly rolling out the requirement to say you must do this, it allows them to gather the data they need and enforce their policies just this much better.
Yeah. They have another requirement, also not so new, regarding very low spam threshold. And they got the number out. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah. So, a lot of times, and it's been sort of, as a deliverability professional, we used to say 1 per 1,000, right? 1 complaint per 1,000 was sort of acceptable. When you started to approach that 3 complaints per 1,000 or more, that's when you start to see delivery issues. And as part of this sort of announcement, Google and Yahoo sort of drew a line in the sand and said, okay, 0.3% is our threshold. We're not going to allow you to go above that. And if you do go above that, then, you're likely going to have delivery issues. To the other side of that, they also said, if you're not following these best practices, if you're getting too many complaints, if you're not authenticating mail, we're not going to help you with support tickets. Right? So they basically said, you must be this tall to ride. If you're not this tall, we're not going to help you. And I think that's a pretty bold move from both of them, because Yahoo historically has been one of the best mailbox providers to work with in regards to getting support, getting clarity of information, getting access to feedback data. And Google, on the other hand, has been remarkably silent when you open support tickets. But they've also said, if you meet the requirements, they will offer you support, which is a huge change for them as well. So I think, all around good things from that point of view. And I think putting a line in the sand so senders know if I'm getting a 1% complaint rate, I'm doing something very wrong. If I'm getting a 0.1% complaint rate, I'm probably in sort of that average, because people complain about everything, right? Whether they've opted in or not. I've seen complaints on confirmed opt-in mail. So, certainly you're going to get a few complaints. It's when you get too many complaints that's the problem.
That joint announcement and approach is very rare in the industry. Do you think that other mailbox providers will join? I know they did ask other mailbox providers to join, but are they joining?
Publicly, no? I don't know of necessarily any announcements that they've publicly joined the list, if you will. But I think when you see that, 2 of the 3 largest mailbox providers on the planet basically say you must do this, everyone benefits, right? So I don't think someone like Comcast or GMX
Microsoft
needs to come out and say you must do this, because they just see the benefit of it, right?
Yeah.
So there is that rising tide lifts all boats theory. And I think others are going to reap the benefits of it, whether they publicly say they're going to support it or not. And I think that's a good thing.
We're always saying that deliverability has some pillars. The IP space, the IP reputation, maybe the second major pillar is domain reputation. I do see some email platforms, even after that Yahoo announcement, still suggesting, senders don't get complicated with email sending, do everything under our domain. I see platforms like, I think that I've seen Substack and Beehive, and especially platforms that are focusing on newsletters, suggesting use our domain. It's fully authenticated, obviously, but it's also sharing the reputation. What's your opinion about that?
Yeah, I think for really small senders, maybe individual creators, It might be beneficial to use a shared network as long as it's fully authenticated and such. And there are opportunities for SaaS providers to at least enable custom subdomains for their clients in cases like that. And I've worked with several SaaS providers to set up that exact, customer.saasprovider.com, right? As their mailing domain. So they at least get a subdomain reputation. But with that, you do run the risk of group reputation as well. And it only takes a few bad actors to really sort of drive a reputation in a negative space. So I would say proceed with caution. If you're really small, it might make sense. If you're, becoming that sort of, if you're hitting 5,000 subscribers a day, it's time to invest the $10 a year to buy a domain. It's time to invest in, a proper website, a proper domain name, a proper email. If you're conducting business and you're sending 5,000 messages a day and hotmail.com is your primary email address, you're probably making enough money to spend $10 a year to buy a domain, at least for email.
Another part of Yahoo sender guidelines is to add a DMARC policy. But I do see many email platforms suggest that senders should add what we call a useless DMARC policy without the RUA, without reporting. For me, it's absurd, but
Why do it halfway, right? There are lots of services to help get you started that offer free tiers for small senders. And if you're a big enough company, you can find a vendor that's not going to charge you so much money that doing DMARC is not relevant. I own several very small personal domains that send, several hundred email a month. Not even, right? Some of them send no email. But I've implemented DMARC with reporting on all of them. And one, just yesterday, I got my weekly status report from my DMARC vendor. And one domain that I've not sent any email from in the last week had about 1,000 messages all blocked because of DMARC failures. And, it just proves to me time and time again that no matter how small you are, you can be targeted for spoofing. Your domain can be abused, which can impact your reputation. And I would much rather want to know that it's happening than be in the dark with a useless none policy that basically says, take no action, but I checked the box. Right? At least tell me if there's a problem. And, there's nothing saying that 6 months from now, Google and Yahoo come out and say, now you have to have an RUA. It's already a recommended setting. It's just not a required setting. Honestly, the other part to it is I think ESPs kind of need to stay out of the DMARC space and telling their customers how to set it up. Because I've seen cases where an ESP says, set it up, and then it causes problems because now you have two records. Because the client's just copy and paste. Or, the record gets removed. They might have had a none policy record and they go back, a reject policy record or quarantine, and they go back and they update it to a none policy.
Right.
So advise, yes. Stick your head in and say, set this record up. It's confusing to customers when they already do DMARC.
Let's talk about, it's like SPF, DKIM, DMARC, and we always ask what's above. And by that I mean BIMI. And I know you have some interesting, another role at the BIMI group. Can you tell us more what's BIMI, what's BIMI group, and especially why senders should invest in BIMI? Yeah,
so what BIMI allows you to do, so brand indicators for message identification, BIMI. What it allows you to do is when you've properly authenticated your mail, and really focusing on DKIM and DMARC authentication, right? SPF is nice to have, but honestly, DKIM, if you could DKIM and DMARC, you can do BIMI. And what it basically says is you've taken the time to authenticate your mail. You've taken the opportunity to move to an enforcement policy with DMARC. So you have to be at least quarantined.
Right.
And you can then have the opportunity to put your logo in the email client. So it'll show up next to your email name. It'll have your branded logo. There are sort of two different levels of that currently as well. There is a self-asserted logo, which means you did not buy a VMC and you basically said, here's my logo. I've done DMARC the way I need to. Some mailbox providers will show that logo in certain situations. So Yahoo will show it on commercial mail, but not personal mail, for example, without a VMC. Whereas providers like Google and Apple require a VMC to basically say, we're going to show your logo. And in order to get a VMC, you have to have a trademark. You have to prove you have the trademark. You have to buy a certificate, which is, anywhere from, again, this price might change. I have no influence on the price. Even as a member of the BIMI group, we can't influence the price because it's done by the providers. They run anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a year US. So it's not cheap, but at the same time, if you're a big brand and you want your logo to display, $100 a month probably isn't going to break your bank. But again, as more providers come on board, as more certs get issued, prices may also decrease over time. But yeah, once you've done that, you can put your logo in the email client. People will see that logo in the mobile list next to the name. You'll be able to see the logos. So if you think about your Yahoo mailbox on Yahoo Mobile, you see the sort of avatar with maybe an initial of the sender. That would be replaced with the sender's logo. Same with Google. When you open the email next to your name, I'm looking at the email you sent me yesterday. It just has an S next to your name. But if you'd gone and done the DMARC and the VMC and all of that, it would put your brand logo next to it. So there's opportunity there. And yeah, we are absolutely seeing sort of a very slow but steady growth in brands implementing BIMI and brands implementing BIMI with a VMC.
I tell you what I would do, but that's me. I would open the gates for an adoption period. You got everyone, do the journey. More domains will get well authenticated, got into enforcement with DMARC, and VMC might be the end goal, for every brand. But let's allow everyone that, because I now can do fake it until you make it sort of thing with a Google account.
Well, that's changing. Lots of people have recently said that's no longer working, right? And I would expect that to continue to decline in support over time. So, Google profiles no longer exist from the Google Plus pages, right? So updating those logos becomes a little more complicated. And support for that, because it's easily spoofable, is also becoming a much bigger challenge. So Google is actually putting up additional roadblocks for Google Image Profile. It's certainly something that's been talked about in the Email Geek Slack time and time again, that, I used to see my logo and now I don't. What happened? But what the BIMI group is actually working on is, where VMCs are sort of that pinnacle, trademark logo, VMC, it was always our plan to look at different tiers. So, right now there is a beta test of mark certificates, MMC is I think what we're calling them. And what that basically is, so like my logo here, right? My Email Karma logo. I don't technically own a trademark on it. I own a copyright on it.
Okay.
And I've been I could prove that for the last 17 years, I've used this logo exclusively for my brand, Email Karma. And I could qualify for an MMC based on the copyright because I have extended use that's uncontested, etc. Right.
And this is without a VMC.
Yes, but it would be an MMC is what it would be called. So the mark certificate would then enable a second tier. And it could also be good for someone who's, a new business that's waiting for their trademark to be approved. They could get an MMC while they're waiting for their trademark to be approved, and then they could upgrade to a VMC. The third option that, could be in the future, again, if you start with security solutions at the bottom, getting people to move up is always hard. But if you start at the top and relax as you go, it's a lot easier to get people to adopt. And so start at the top with VMC, then MMC, and then maybe we move to sort of a generic cert. So like a restaurant could say, I want to put a little, hamburger and soft drink icon because I'm a restaurant, but I don't own a trademark. I don't own a logo, like that kind of thing. So there's the possibility in the future of a generic logo mark that would be a classification of a type of business as opposed to a specific logo.
Interesting.
And that's even where self-asserted logos come in, right? Like if you were to go and look up the BIMI record for emailkarma.net, you would see it's a self-asserted logo, right?
Right.
And it's basically me saying, yep, here's my logo. Some places may display it, other places won't. But it's me putting sort of that stake in the ground of this is my logo. If you want to display it, display it.
To cover one more important thing that is basically part of that new Yahoo new sender guidelines is the easy unsubscription. And as we're recording this podcast, I think that it got delayed, and now it's ESPs should finish implementing all the header changes. I think it's tomorrow, 2 days from now, at the beginning of
June 1st, yeah.
June 1st, yeah.
And again, is that a hard deadline? We'll see. We'll see if mail starts bouncing if it's not there, June 1st. So list unsubscribe. There is an RFC for list unsubscribe, but there's also an RFC, which is an internet standard, if you don't know what RFC stands for, that basically says, if you build the header in this manner with these tags, the mailbox provider can offer an unsubscribe button and enable a very quick unsubscribe for consumers. And actually, Google's been using the list unsubscribe for quite some time before even in this announcement. So the one click wasn't required at the time, but now it is. If someone had reported a message as spam, it would say, do you also want to unsubscribe? So it would give the consumer the option to say, unsubscribe me from this, or just report it as spam. And as a delivery professional, I will take 1,000 unsubscribes over one complaint every day. Right? We want people that are no longer interested in mail to unsubscribe. So making it easy is definitely the way to go. And, having talked with the team at Google and having talked with the team at Yahoo for several years, their main function is customer satisfaction, their customer. And it's how do they make it easier for their customers to interact with mail and stop the stuff they don't want, but keep getting the stuff they do want. So they don't want to block good marketing. They want to, make it easy for consumers to stop good marketing and block bad marketing.
Obviously, you have to have DKIM on that header, but also it's related to the domain reputation. So abusers, spammers are very good in email authentication. So as we know, if your domain reputation is not so well, you can't get away with the easy unsubscription.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting approach.
Yeah, if you have a poor domain reputation, you won't see a list unsubscribe header, right? They're not building these tools to enable you to sort of wash your list. They want to make it, like I said, for good senders, they want to make it really easy for their customers to manage their profile. And like in Yahoo, they have a subscription center. So you can actually go into your Yahoo Mail and look at the subscription center and see every message you're subscribed to that has a list unsubscribe, and click an unsubscribe button, even if you haven't got the email in your inbox. Google is coming out with a subscription center as well to make it easy to see all the newsletters you're subscribed to. And in one place, you can go unsubscribe, 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 unsubscribe if you want. And again, that's a response to consumers requesting better tools to manage subscriptions.
The rumor is that AI is coming to take everyone's jobs. Do you think there is a risk for us in the deliverability space with almighty deliverability AI consultant or something like that?
I mean, no. I at this moment, no. I'm not going to say never. I'm not going to say never, but at this moment, no. So, having done this job long enough, you see repeated issues, but each time the issue is repeated, the fix is different. So there's no formula that you can go through really that says, take these 6 steps and the problem goes away. Right. You could say, just reconfirm your list every time you have a delivery issue, confirmed opt-in only, like it's going to reduce the chance, but it's never going to stop things completely. There is a nuance to correcting delivery issues that I don't know if you could train an AI to do that. I think where we will see AI in deliverability will be things around adjusting throttling, adjusting rate limits, amalgamating sort of the MX behind the scenes of, Al Iverson, I think, said, Google manages like 500,000 domains in Google Workspace, right? As a deliverability professional, I don't know which all 500,000 those are, but I do know the MX records that Google uses, so I can target the MX records. Well, AI could, in the future, say, all these domains are the same. It doesn't necessarily need me to go and do that, but I could then work with that AI to say, okay, when you see these patterns, take these actions. Same with Microsoft, same with Yahoo, et cetera. You could then take those and use AI to do smarter adjustment of delivery from a technical point of view without necessarily the need of human. But the human would still need to write the prompts and write the sort of the rules behind how the AI should think about those things, at least to start with.
Yeah, and I think that also some platforms would probably make it easier, for in terms of audience management and choosing the right audience and dynamic segments. But
I think that AI to do delivery segments and better targeting of consumers and better understanding of the right, like we said, the right message at the right time. If you have 1 million subscribers, you might have 1 million variations you need to think about. No person can figure that out, but an AI probably could.
Everyone who works with the clients like you and me, it's got into a place that email marketing is like, doctors and lawyers. There is the expert for every vertical. So I know enough to understand that there is email marketing for e-commerce, but I'm not the expert on the topic.
Right. Yeah, email delivery people tend to be a bit more of a generalist role in regards to, I know enough about, B2B mailing, enough about B2C mailing, enough about interacting with different sort of automations and things like that. I don't consider myself a marketer, but I've been around marketers long enough that I've absorbed, policies, procedures, thoughts, programs that have worked really well, programs that have failed remarkably well at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think, you have to be a bit of a generalist, but, I still focus a lot on that technology piece, having an ESP background, right? It's the pieces that I can influence as the vendor, which is the piece between my network and the recipient network. That's the piece I'm really most interested in. It'd be like saying, I know enough about GDPR to understand the rules, but I'm not a lawyer. So I'm not going to be able to give advice around legal or around exact program requirements for these are the 10 data points you need to store. But I could talk about it, and my advice is always going to be run this all past your counsel to make sure it's kosher with them, right? And it's because I have to know enough to talk intelligently about it, which is also why I went and got privacy certified, because I wanted to have that background and that education around being, understanding privacy legislation at its core, but understanding privacy legislation slightly better than your average person as well. And it enables me to talk in a way that is confident, is educated, and most often, because I've seen this from many different viewpoints, a well thought out response to, but how do I do with this is GDPR? Or how do I do with this under Canadian anti-spam legislation, or how do I deal with this under CASL or under CAN-SPAM, right?
Yeah.
You have to have that bit of a generalist role because you're going to get those questions as that delivery professional. Is this illegal under whatever law that I'm doing or, responsible for?
Yeah.
I can't always answer that question, but I can give some general advice and best practices around remaining compliant. Privacy and data management and all of that goes back to like my question way at the beginning, right? Of how do you solve delivery issues? You need to understand the data. And to understand the data, you have to have the privacy part. So it's all sort of connected.
It's an enabler.
But not one piece is going to solve all the problems. So I think as a delivery professional, and you might agree with this, you have to tease out the pieces and figure out this piece is causing the problem this time. Whereas with another client, it might be this piece over here is causing the problem. And that's where, like you said, AI is going to steal my job. Not today, not tomorrow, 10 years from now, maybe. But again, you have to train it to understand which piece in the puzzle is causing the problem.
I always say that I can talk with deliverability people 2 hours, but we all have a hard stop, as you said. So I'm curious to know how people can follow you, to learn more from you. You're one of the top voices on the topic of email marketing and deliverability. So how people can follow you?
Yeah, so I pretty much use the handle Email Karma everywhere. I'm on Twitter or X. I'm on YouTube. I don't have much YouTube content, but I'm there. I'm on Blue Sky. LinkedIn, you can find me under my name, Matthew Vernhout. My website, emailkarma.net. Otherwise, I kind of try to use the same handle everywhere. So if you search for Email Karma, that's where I'm going to be, all one word.
Right.
And yeah, I can, I'll give you a link for the show notes if you want, where people can find.
Sure. I'll do that, obviously. Great, Matthew. It's been quite a journey, and I'm always glad to talk to you.
Same, I'm glad we connected.
To teach.
One other thing, this year in mid-June, June 17th, we're going to do Deliverability Week. So people like you and I are going to write about deliverability. And there's at least a dozen or so email delivery professionals from across the spectrum going to be writing about things. So check out Email Delivery Week when it happens, and like you said, it's going to be that opportunity to get that baseline understanding and see a bunch of different viewpoints on the same topic.
Is it a website
It's going to be a bunch of websites. So kind of like follow on social media for Delivery Week. I believe that's the hashtag. Deliverability Week. I think that's the hashtag we're going to use. So there's, like I said, there's at least a dozen people that are going to be writing, and you'll probably write for the OI blog or your own blog. I'm going to write on Email Karma. I know that Spam Resource, Word to the Wise, and a bunch of other bloggers are also going to be writing about it. So it's going to be a great opportunity to get a ton of delivery knowledge in 1 week with, amazing. Like I said, a dozen different viewpoints on deliverability.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Matthew.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Sure. My pleasure.